Hello and welcome to Athletics Check. I am Anthony along with Tyler and Michael, and we are happy and excited to give you guys our first episode of September. Well, recording date. Sorry, I don't want to get ahead of
Yeah.
myself here. Sorry.
Yeah.
I don't want to. I'm killing the kayfabe.
It's okay, man. We're
No.
still so excited and so happy.
Yes.
I'm happy to be here, and I have so much to talk about. It's week 1 of football starting this week, correct?
That is
Tony?
correct. Huge.
Tony?
Yes. Huge.
This is like
Yeah,
a national
confirmed,
holiday
please
for
confirm.
us, man. This is like a big deal for us at Athletics Check. I should have
Football
brought more
season
people.
has begun.
Yeah.
Well,
Where to start with
regular season has
That's-
begun,
that's-
not preseason.
Correct. The football is officially commencing and has commenced this week.
Tomorrow.
Yep.
It'll start tomorrow.
Great.
So,
We're really dating our podcast. Yeah.
Yep,
Yes,
right.
It is the 6th of September today. Yes. Super smooth. I love that. I feel like before we dive in, I know that there's something in the last podcast that we had to talk about, but damn it,
Now we're talking about this.
But now we're talking about this.
Was it some housekeeping?
Some
housekeeping.
Perhaps.
Housekeeping. Someone wanted to talk about giving inspiration. I think that's probably Michael. I'll blame Michael.
I mean,
on the spot.
yeah,
Michael,
I do
talk about it.
have a lot to say on that topic. Talking about inspiration and how it's doled out into a party. The dungeon master has it sometimes feels like it's a lot on their plate. And I kind of like sometimes alternate ways of giving out inspiration. The basic way for
what is it?
D&D.
What is inspiration, Michael?
Oh yeah, inspiration.
What are you talking about?
Tony, inspiration is when it's kind of like a resource where your character can be inspired and have inspiration, and then you can spend that to grant yourself or others. I forget if that's a default rule or not, but that's kind of how I run it at our table. You can spend it to get an advantage in a situation on a skill check.
A reroll if you don't like the results of something.
Would you say that this is a form of currency, and are there other forms of currency in some of the main forms of D&D that we've talked about so far?
This is more of a resource in the form of like my character has abilities, but even so, it's riding the line of kind of meta, because the better you role play your character, you can be awarded a point of inspiration and then use it. But it's also like
it's like meta currency.
I know that this guy just failed this check. I'm going to use my inspiration, cause the reroll. So in that form, it's like a resource that is expendable.
Which I think using it in that way is sort of a house rule that we do sort of as well.
Yeah.
Because I think very basic rules is written in 5e. I think you have to declare you're using inspiration before you roll.
True. And I also have a house rule of inspiration of I let players have more than one. Typically, it's like you can have inspiration or you don't have inspiration. I say they can bank up to 3 inspiration. That way they actually use them and actually make character choices more often so that I can reward them more freely of like, hey, I just gave you inspiration. Oh, but you already had one. So it's kind of, why am I wasting my breath?
Yeah.
Instead, they can actually have them and keep track of them.
Yeah.
So inspiration is great. There's other forms of currency too, like you were mentioning, like gold and stuff like that. If that's what you meant,
that's in universe sort of.
I mean, that one is right currency within the universe, but also like when I'm building a character in video games, I have experience points to you, or I have an allotted bank of things I'm able to make my character in a way, and maybe they end up being something that they were when I started, but they have the ability to start with this many points in this designation, in sports games, whatever, speed, jumping ability, shooting, throwing, passing, catching, whatever, depending on the sport, of course, hitting in baseball.
So really a lot when you start by rolling your stats and you kind of designate like, hey, I'm a an orc, I get a +2 to strength, and I can add that into what I've rolled.
Okay,
And then at
that's
certain
exactly
points
what I
within the
mean,
game,
yeah.
like let's say level 4, level 8, it's typically every 4 levels you'll get what's called an ability score improvement, where you can add more points to those scores to make those numbers go up. We got to see those numbers go up.
You love to see big numbers.
You love to see big numbers, make
Yeah,
big results happen.
bigger is better when it comes to the numbers,
Mm-hmm.
typically, unless it's damage being dealt to you. It's really not good. Yeah, that's true. And sort of inspiration is, like you said, kind of a meta currency. It is sort of that, like that. I'm trying to think of another sort of resource that is like that in the game, and I'm not. It's not
Not,
coming to
not-
mind.
I mean,
Not exactly like that.
other
Where
than
it's
like
really
you get
like between the DM and the player, kind of about their
right.
character. You know.
Yeah, the only thing that really affect your stats are maybe sometimes magical items. Like I have a sword that gives me +1, so you'll hear that a lot. My +1 dagger of venom or whatever. And so that will actually give you a bonus to certain stats, like attacking with that item and stuff like that. Other than that, yeah, that's the big kind of currency in between DMs and players, kind of outside a game, kind of meta level. There we go. We got us
Nice.
there.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but there's a lot going on with inspiration. There's a lot going on as a dungeon master when you're running a game. It can be hard to keep track of what everyone's things are that they would get inspiration for. You know, like when you're a player and you're looking at your character sheet, there's a portion where you fill out like your uh bit of backstory kind of with your character and your personality and stuff. It's called your bonds, traits, uh flaws, and
Ideals.
Yeah, thank you. And when you are, and kind of how it's supposed to work is when you as a character are living up to those ideals, or you know,
Playing
being
into your flaws and
playing into your
stuff.
flaws, thank you, those sorts of things. That's the moments when a DM is supposed to be like, aha, well done, you're playing into your character, here's inspiration, you are inspired.
It helps you as a player get to influence the story a little bit more by being into it, being involved with, like, I didn't like how that went down,
Yeah.
or I want to guarantee success. I'm going to roll with advantage, use my inspiration. So it's just kind of like this give and take that goes back and forth, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Roll with advantage.
Roll with advantage.
Right.
So roll the die twice and take the higher number, because typically higher the better. You want to
pump those
meet
numbers
or
up.
beat,
And you can use inspiration to make that happen on a certain occasion that you feel like is best for your success or fun in the party and game.
Yeah.
Let's say I'm flexing on the podcast and I want to make sure it goes well. I'm going to give myself advantage on my athletics check.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks so much for that.
Yeah.
There you go. I want to give myself. I don't want to look like a fool on the internet, so I'm
Yeah.
going to make sure that I flex, with advantage and look
So
really
we got
good on
our
the internet.
so we got
look
our
at that lighting.
flexes out.
Yeah.
See, that's the
Oh,
inspiration
wow.
coming in,
That's the inspiration coming in. Yeah.
Yeah, you're turning on the lights. Yeah.
But a great example, and this is something for sure I knew we were going to talk about, is Baldur's Gate 3, a new game that came out.
Yeah.
It's D&D, but in a video game, and we absolutely want to get you to try it.
And see, this is the way they do inspiration in that game is really interesting too. You can bank it. Each character can actually sort of. I mean, each character can have it. Yeah.
But it would be a great kind of introductory platform for you, like getting into, oh, this is what a barbarian does because I'm doing it all the time. I don't have to read a million things. I press the button, he goes and he rages, and I can see him light up with energy. It's a great platform for people to get into it more, or people who have already played a lot just be like, oh, these are all these cool changes that have happened with this game. So I definitely want to show it to you sometimes, so you can kind of get an overview of like, oh, these are the rules, as if they're, instead of on a tabletop and interpreted by a DM, they're interpreted by the creators of this game and gone throughout the entirety of the video game.
So this is the third iteration of the game. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah,
Baldur's Gate, it's the third in the Baldur's Gate series. Yeah, there were 2 other Baldur's Gate games that were like made in the 90s, and there are story elements that or maybe it was like the early 2000s. I'm not sure of the year. I know that the previous iterations of these video games ran off of the AD&D's or second edition rule set. So they were made fairly long time ago by a different company, you know.
Like the year 2000 was Baldur's Gate 2, and then 98 was the first Baldur's Gate. So you were right on there, late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah. And some of the story characters I think are recurring, you know, between the 2 things, but I don't know necessarily how much of the main plot of this game
actually
influenced
continues
by those first games. It's not maybe like a direct line. It's more of like also a spiritual successor, but a sequel to. So I don't know. I don't know how
to
much
plug it, it's a very good game, very accurate to D&D, very beautiful game, and you can have a different experience every time going through it because you make choices along the way. You have dice rolls that sometimes fail when you go through and play the story again, and you have a totally different experience because of them. My brother was playing a drow, which is like a dark elf, and so they're typically like, you know, have a negative connotation to them, and everyone in town reacted differently to him having a conversation with them. Like, we don't see you guys, you know, above the surface, and it's like all these dialogue options coming up because of your character choices and what you do in the game. So it kind of nails that on the head of like you can have a completely different experience from someone else.
Yeah,
highly recommend it for those out there who have not yet picked it up.
I mean, it's a great vehicle for D&D. One, as a vehicle for learning this game, but it's also a great vehicle for like it's set in a D&D universe, you know, so it really gives you kind of like you get to interact with all of the like a lot of the classic D&D monsters in like the D&D setting. It's set in Forgotten Realms, which is a D&D setting that a lot of stuff nowadays is published for, you know, so you can meet a character in this game and then play a tabletop, you know. A lot of this game is actually based on Descent into Avernus, which was a module for the tabletop from I think around 2020 or 2019.
Just a few years back,
which is when the game first started being in production. And then it's has since, you know, become its own thing from there, but kind of has some allusions to things that happened in the tabletop story.
Do you remember, Michael, which city it is that the D&D movie takes place in? Is that Baldur's Gate 2?
Neverwinter.
Is that in the same world?
Yes, it is. Yeah, so that's all happening in a portion of the Forgotten Realms that seems to be get the most attention these days, at least because that's where all the modules are. The Sword Coast of the Forgotten Realms is a portion of
the world. Get there.
Yeah, the whole world. Yeah. And Neverwinter is there, and Baldur's Gate is actually a city in the Forgotten Realms in Faerun, and you get to see a video game adaptation of it, which is very cool.
It was very good. I'll show it to you sometime, Anthony.
Yeah,
I'll stream it to you.
All right.
Yeah,
you can make your own little character.
I think it would be very fun for someone like yourself who's new to these sorts of things, who's interested in learning about the game, but you know, it kind of means that you don't have to like sit down in front of a book and like read like a ton of about all the characters to understand the game. It kind of teaches you the game as you go along, you know.
You need knowledge is needed. Yeah.
And if you're a visual learner person, it's also nice to just be able to see like, oh, this is what casting a spell looks like, you know, and here's what getting into a fight with goblins looks like, you know.
Yeah.
Baldur's Gate 3, it's been out for just over a month as we record this, and the ratings that I'm just looking up here when I Googled to check out some of the release dates and stuff like that, it's pretty insane how highly rated it is, even after being out for just over a month now.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I think there's a big audience out there of people who are very interested in this topic, who have like never really had the group in which to pull together and commit to playing D&D at the tabletop. I mean, scheduling is one of the biggest hiccups of this this style of gaming. So it's great because there's solo. You can also still play online with friends, and it's more accessible to everybody.
Yeah, I mean, it could be its own D&D campaign if you wanted to get together with your friends. It has multiplayer, and you can get together with people and treat it like it is its own D&D campaign, because it totally is. I mean, it's a good video game in and of itself, in addition to also being a good D&D game, which is nice, because finding a good D&D game is sometimes few and far between. We haven't had too many of those recently. It's nice to have a really, really good one that you can really sink your teeth into.
Sure. Speaking of sinking my teeth into things, I
Yeah.
am dying to hear about football.
Yeah.
I need to know what's going on because I feel very left out. Because I didn't know that it was this week, and I'm like kind of shocked.
Yeah, I told Tyler today, and I found out at the gym. I found out because this morning that it was week 1, because they were like, week 1 of football starts today, and I was
I
like,
heard people talking about their fantasy drafts as they were hanging out at the front desk reception.
Yeah,
stuff like that. I'm like, oh shit, it's like going down. It's time. It's time
You're
to
gonna
start talking about it.
You're gonna be hearing about that through the end of the year, basically.
How'd you do? Did you draft? Do you draft?
I did not draft a team. I've avoided it, and I don't know. Some sports fans and people will think that's crazy. Like, how can you love sports so much and not have a fantasy team? I did it for years. I did 3 teams at one time. I ran my own leagues. I was running drafts while, hosting a draft while running it with my own team, and just I don't know. It got to be to a point where it's like I'm rooting for players against my preferred team, the Green Bay Packers.
As you do, you want to get
And
the points to win.
and it's like, or wanting, oh, this guy on the Packers scored. It was a rushing touchdown. It didn't get thrown to my wide receiver or tight end or things like that.
Garbage.
I've backed away from fantasy sports the last few years in general, but as I've said on a previous show, baseball and basketball to me are more fun. They're every day. I mean, in basketball, you're playing for, let's see, late October until April goes the regular season. A lot of times in fantasy sports, your playoffs will happen during the regular season, so it happens before the actual season ends. So what I'm saying is, like, football goes 18 weeks now, and then you have 4 weeks of playoffs, including the Super Bowl, basically. 3 rounds, and you could throw a Pro Bowl in there. So really,
there's not enough football, is what you're saying?
Well, it's only once a week. So like that is cool, like, but it's one day of the week and you're waiting for that 1 week of games. Whereas basketball, it's like you might have 6 players going every night of the week, maybe. I mean,
okay. I kind of see from a draft perspective. That's more interesting.
Yeah. And so in football, I have in 1 week you play 1 game. And like 1 week in fantasy football is 1 game. Whereas in basketball, you can do 1 week, but your team plays 3 to 5 games in that week. And you talk about baseball, it is literally 6 months long, right?
Yeah.
The first half of the season is April, May, and June. The second half is July, August, and September. And then you play the playoffs in October. And so it can be a 7-month long season for people. But for fantasy sports, 6 months and your team, your players are playing absolutely every day. Like,
all the time.
You're only going to have 1 day off every 2 weeks. Sometimes, like that's So you're playing 160 plus games in 6 month span. So like, there's just so much more going on with that. I have to think every day. Oh, I have this starting pitcher for the Pirates against this team, or I mean, there's just so much stuff that goes into it. Like, it's really a major deep dive to do that.
It's really
Um,
interesting.
but that also though for football though, it's kind of a good thing. Like that's why people like my mom or somebody's aunt or grandma can have a team. Like it's not too
but
terribly
got to pay
hard to be a
attention
part of.
once in a while.
Yes, yeah, and it's one day
See,
a week. You
that's
need your
funny.
lineup
Yeah.
set at a certain time. And I get it. Like it is fun, and for certain purposes, like I would still do it, but I just don't. I'd rather be a fan of my team than I would of like. I mean, hey, I'm just like anybody else. I want to win money and feel like I'm
I
so
knew what
smart
was
and I drafted
happening.
the best team. Yeah, like all these things.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
But I just enjoy more. Go ahead, Tyler.
So my I guess logistical question, because you said that you ran a league before. How do you like you gather up, let's say 12 people or however many people, and you say who's picking first? What do you want? Is there a breakdown? Like I want 5 quarterbacks, 1 linebacker, 1 kicker,
Sure.
or like is there a precedent? Do you set that as the game master of fantasy football?
That's a great question. And yes, and I take it very seriously. And man, I just had like a nightmare
Let's hear
feeling
it.
of like,
Let's hear
and
it.
okay, so
Like flashback.
yeah, and
Let's
so
hear
this
it.
is what happened. It's a
Story
friends and
time.
families league. It's like 14 people. I mean, usually leagues are 10, sometimes smaller, because then you're getting everyone on everybody's team is a big deal kind of player. Whereas when you get 12, 14, 16 person league, like you're using a lot of players that might not get to play very much and are kind of hoping for the best, right? Like the bigger the league is and the more players on your team, the more people are drafted. So you're kind of getting to lesser players in a way. And they're all obviously incredible players. I mean, to be at that level, Jesus.
Yeah.
So I had it was my friends and family league. I mean, literally aunts, uncles, some of my best friends, coworkers, like really people, everyone that I'm super tight with. Usually have like a group chat for your league. My friend and roommate at the time, he is now neither both.
Oh no. Because of fantasy football? Oh no.
No, he just sucks.
Okay. Understandable.
Sometimes people do that,
He was before, we talk about like you have to have everything ready by this time on Sunday to have your team and your lineups locked in, because once you set and that first game kicks off, like most of your players are playing and you're kind of locked into those players. He had dropped and signed a player that he was saying was an accident. And so I spent like 12 hours in this text group of people saying why or why not it should or should not be legal for him to get back the player that he claims that he intended to get in the first place. And I mean, I'm taking a vote with friends and family, like, and people are hashing out it was like we went to trial and I was hearing everyone's depositions and counter arguments and just back and forth of why this should or should not be okay. And you have those people who don't care, but then you come to, you say you have 2 people, maybe 4 people who don't care. But then you have a 5-5 split of, so like now I need those people who don't care. I need you to have a vote, or me as the commissioner. I got to make decisions. But
it's
then
a good
like,
reminder for everyone to get out there and register to vote. Okay.
That's exactly right. But then, and maybe I don't want this jerk to get this player that he claims he accidentally dropped from his team. And, and then the implication of how that player played and all those things. But then it's like, okay, if I'm against him and I'm the commissioner, but then I got to have breakfast with him tomorrow too. and if that costs him a win, that allows him in the playoffs, that stops somebody else. And
it's tricky when it's real money and betting and stuff.
Yes,
dude.
And with your closest friends and family.
I would like to pitch in.
Yeah.
On this argument. If I were there and I were in the pool, I would say stop making accidents then, bro. No more accidents.
That's great. No,
sucks, dude.
Try it would have been better if everyone had that feeling, because then it was just like, no,
it's the thing of like how is, I don't know, like this is a weird tricky situation. He's saying it's an accident. How
Yeah.
was it a computer error? Did it just say like, oh, we're dropping this person when he meant to drop this person? Or is he just saying it's an accident because, oh, he dropped a player he didn't think was going to do good and then they did good. And then he's like, oh, wait,
Amendment 1A, bro. No accidents allowed.
Yeah.
Be more careful. That's it. Yeah, I would just say that you're out of luck.
I mean,
man.
yeah, I don't know. That's
it would have
tricky.
been easier.
What
And
happened?
I mean, from now on, that will be the case.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
as a stronger person, I would have cut it off right away and not let that go on for 12 hours as we all watch football and
Yeah.
like, oh, hey, I got to wait for my uncle's response. He thinks that you're an idiot and you shouldn't have done that.
My uncle says you're an idiot. Anthony to do. Oh, that's great. I have a kind of similar way in when like you make risks at the D&D table and like let's say you want to try a certain action. I tell you, okay, that's locked in. You're doing that. Now you have to make a check to see if it's successful. And let's say it's not successsul and you fall off a cliff and die. I have to hold the rules accountable where I can't be like, your actions have consequences. You made a mistake, you made an accident, or you flubbed something. You have to deal with that. And I, as the DM, am now killing your character that you put so much concept into and thoughts into. I mean,
you're
talking
Michael, from experience right now.
Yeah, I killed Michael in the game from his mistakes.
Yeah, and I was fine with it.
Yeah,
because
luckily you accepted it.
We have a literal example here.
This is an example. Yeah. I feel like we're touching on an example here.
Yes.
This is a thing that happened at our game table where
I'm so glad you guys aren't in the same room right now.
Yeah, because we'd be fisticuffs. Yeah,
down,
for sure.
Put him up, buddy.
But Michael handled it expertly. Where I asked him, like,
I legit made a mistake. Yeah,
and this little check-in of consent. I'm like, this happens, right? And he's like, why would we do it any other way? That's the rule.
Yeah,
and it's just like this acceptance of like you
punished him for it.
Yeah, well, you fight sky sharks, you get eaten by sky sharks, man.
Yeah, I forgot about opportunity attacks and how they work sometimes, and sometimes you get hit both times when you were trying to get out of there. I play a very tanky character, a paladin, and I have a fairly good AC, an armor class that's very high. So I pumped those numbers up and I thought I can take a swing because I can probably get out scot-free because that's how it works. You either get hit or you don't. And I took the gamble that I wouldn't get hit when I was moving out of a dangerous situation. And it turns out I got hit twice. And that put me on the ground. But then everyone else was kind of just like, he's fine. And then the enemies that we were fighting were like, he's not fine, he's lunch, and they went for me, and that's how it goes. Yeah, and I got turned into lunch. So
who ate you? Was it the Beverly character?
Sky sharks.
It was sky sharks.
Okay. It's sky sharks. We were fighting sky sharks. We were flying through an enchanted forest on a back of a flying mechanical beetle, and that mechanical beetle was making a lot of noise, which attracted sky sharks. And so the sky sharks came after me. Well, came after all of us. I had flying boots, which I had picked up from the magic shop earlier in the campaign. Love those flying boots, by the way. And I was like, okay, I can, close with these enemies because I'm one of the only people who can fly right now. I will go and do that. And then I did so, and I thought I could get out of the way back to the safety of my compatriots, and not so much. So
you lost.
Yeah, sometimes you lose. Sometimes you take the gamble, and it doesn't always work out for you.
So to your friend Anthony, I say, you're out. You're out, man. You already submitted your people, your players. It's done. It's decided. So.
Yeah. You got to live with the risks that you take. And sometimes when you're clicking on characters willy-nilly, you drop a character you're not supposed to, and you got to live with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to your former friend, I say, too bad. So sad.
Michael, would you say that Tyler rules with an iron fist?
Nah, he's good. I don't know if Iron Fist is necessarily the way. He's fair, but I wouldn't say ironclad.
Okay.
I think he's willing to wobble a little bit when the situation calls for it. And I think that's
a tricky
a
balance,
positive
though.
trait to have.
Yeah, that's a tricky balance, because when I first played,
I'm
and I
Iron
first started
Fist.
DMing, yeah, you're very Iron Fist rules
I'm
lawyer.
like, that's not how that works.
That's what we call it. We call it a rules lawyer.
Yeah.
I'm
arguing.
Very strict. You're arguing with everybody about every rule because you know the rule, but also
But
there's
I also
interpretation of the rules. So you're
want
wrong.
it to be fun for the
Yeah.
players. It's just,
You are wrong.
when they cast 2 leveled spells on a single turn, one of those got to be a cantrip. You can't do two at the same time, man.
Solid example. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, but there's a tricky balance, because when I first started DMing, I was very loose with the rules. I'm like, yeah, that sounds fun. You should do that. And I realized how problematic that was becoming, that they were just like
They're
flowing
they're
through,
walking all over you.
They're walking all over me, but also like I was encouraging them to do it. And it was like,
Yeah.
well, now I don't have the integrity to like stand by my notes or stand by this rule that's supposed to take place, or like, hey, you didn't rule it for that way for that person. Why are you ruling it this way for me? I'm like, oh, the rules are set there so that you have a defense barrier.
It's true.
Of saying like, this is how I run it, this is how it's done. It's equality for everybody, because
in a lot of games, the dungeon master is the storyteller, but he's also the referee. When it becomes you versus the universe, the dungeon master is the one who is the referee in that situation. That is an actual term that they use in a lot of games too, which is a direct correlation to sports. Like the dungeon master is the ref. He makes the calls. When he's when one of the characters offsides, it's the refs who got to call it.
That's right.
And sometimes you can't bend on that.
Sometimes the call on the field stands.
Exactly.
Very nice. Very nice. In fantasy football, when someone who runs their league,
crossover we've ever had.
That was phenomenal. Write that down. 32-11. Okay. Commissioner is the person who is typically in charge of a sports league, the NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, all these things. So in fantasy sports, we also use that term, that you are the commissioner of your fantasy league. So that is also a term that crosses over from the actual NFL, the big time sports leagues, as well as your fantasy teams, and who's in charge of the league. It's known as a commissioner.
Yeah. And in some ways, a dungeon master kind of does become a commissioner for his table is too, because that's kind of what we're getting at too, is like we're refereeing, when it's like, oh, this is how it's supposed to be, Wizards of the Coast being the NFL commissioner in this, situation. They said, this is how your spell slots work or whatever. But then also like, I'm like, but maybe it could be different.
Maybe
it could be a little, could be cooler.
Could be
maybe
cooler.
I like it this way,
Yeah.
So let's talk it out.
You said spell what?
Spell slots.
Spell slots. All right.
What'd you think I said?
Well, for a second, I thought you said something about smelling salts, and I was like, "Oh,
okay.
Nice.
Oh, another
reference." So I was
Yes.
like, "Oh, and maybe there's some sort of line in there that could be used."
I know smelling salt.
Could be
lines.
now.
Yeah.
Could be now. The revivify spell now requires smelling salts.
That's right. Is it segue or segue?
Segue.
I think it's segue.
Segue.
Speaking of segues, how did you run it that like everyone on your team said, like kind of circling back to my question of like, hey, you get 4 quarterbacks, you get a linebacker. How do you, as the commissioner of your own league, decide that, factor that?
It's kind of up to the players, right? During the draft, in a way. Like, oh, Tony, we can't hear you.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, so you want to have it decided leading up to your draft, but definitely before, because you don't want to draft a team for certain rules or types of stat leagues. such as in football, there is you might hear the term PPR, which is points per reception. I get a point every time my player catches the ball.
Okay.
So that changes things, right? A wide receiver who catches the ball 100 times a year, but only gains 800 or 900 yards, which is still a lot. But compared to a wide receiver who gets like 14 or 1500 yards in a season, and the same amount of touchdowns, like that changes a lot, right? A guy who catches the ball 100 plus yards or 100 plus times a season is very valuable in a points per reception league. So those are things you want to know. And somebody will say like, hey, you want to join my fantasy league? We have an open spot. Oh, is it PPR or whatever? What I like to do that was kind of a fun in between thing, and this is what I liked about being the commissioner. I take people's input, but I like to try fun things, and I also know what I like. But like I said, I'm not afraid to try other stuff. So I liked a half a point per reception, which is pretty rare. But it's kind of the combination of like, so okay, my guy caught 100 balls this year. I got 50 points from him just catching it.
Yeah.
But so much can be done for a player to just get open to catch the ball and not necessarily do anything afterwards. But whatever, these are kind of unnecessary semantics to that part of it. But
yeah,
but
it's interesting because like when I played in a league, it was a PPR league.
Yep.
And running backs always in our league, I didn't really get into the nitty gritty of like, oh, running backs get this many, wide receivers, quarterbacks get this many, et cetera, but running backs were always the king of the league. Like you would base how well your team is doing kind of based on who your running backs were. Wide receivers, yes, came number 2, maybe a quarterback as well, tight ends sometimes if you had Kelsey, whatever his name was.
Sure. Yep.
But other than that, it didn't really matter who your tight end was. They were all kind of around the same. But you're saying that you like to tweak it so that maybe it was more spread across different positions is what I'm picking up.
I do like that because I mean, there's so many ways. Like if you that way you don't feel like you're locked into you have to have this kind of player or whatever, or my aunt who knows nothing can maybe feel like she has a shot or whatever. In football, like it's typically it all depends. Like there's a lot of standard leagues which is like similar to what you see on the field. It's one quarterback, 2 running backs, a couple wide receivers, a tight end, and then in fantasy football, a lot of times, most cases, I'd say 90+% of the time, you're drafting one entire defense. So instead of me having, in the early 2000s, Ray Lewis, a middle linebacker of the Ravens, I would have the Ravens defense as like just the entire team.
That seems to be the common way to do it now.
Yeah, and so if they get an interception, a fumble, they block a kick.
That way you can root for your team.
That way I like
the games you want to watch.
Yes. Okay. But it's not like, oh, this player did that or this guy. No, it's that entire team.
That's cool.
If they maybe a punt return touchdown or things like that, a safety perhaps. One thing I like to do is I like having 2 quarterbacks depending on the size of your league. And so this was something I did, I think, in that 14 team plus league, is that each team has 2 starting quarterbacks, which means you want to have at least 3 on your team. And there's 32 teams in the NFL, and not every team plays every week, right? Every team has at least 1 week off. So you kind of got to get creative with who your 2 quarterbacks are, who your backup is. Maybe you have a backup to one of your already quarterbacks just in case. But you got to that's the thing that you really have to pay attention to, because you don't want to have a player starting who isn't playing a game that week.
Yeah, you got to diversify your portfolio.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, exactly. So you don't want a bunch of guys who all have a week off called a bye week, week 10, like that. You're making it so that week you either have to drop and sign a bunch of guys or just take, basically we call it punting, where you just take a loss 1 week and hope that you win. Your team is good enough to win all the other weeks, and it happens in fantasy sports. I'll give you a different example of that in a bit here.
I also wanted to mention that the league that I was a part of was an IDP league, which is individual defensive players. So we were drafting defensive tackles, linebackers, safeties. Yeah, all that stuff.
So you also said that there's like fantasy basketball and stuff too. What kind of categories do those fall into? If it's obviously not like
you used the perfect word there, and that is the difference between these sports and fantasy football. In fantasy football, you are trying to get the most amount of points, right? A touchdown is worth 6 or 7. A catch is half a point or 1, whatever. That's all these different things. A field goal, blah blah. And in basketball and baseball, we'll use basketball as an example, but in these sports, you use categories. So your teams play more than once a week. Your teams are playing 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5 times in a week. In baseball, you're playing 6 or 7 times a week, almost every week. Sometimes you'll play 5. In that case, what you do in those leagues is is it head-to-head points or is it categories? So in my fantasy baseball league and basketball leagues, I would choose categories. I choose what categories, and then you play that person for a week. So let's just as an example, I have my team. I play versus Michael. It's every game that happens through that week, starting Monday all the way through Sunday. Sunday being the last day. And so at the end of the week, on that end of that Sunday, it's who won the most categories. So we're talking about points, we're talking about rebounds, assists, steals, blocks.
Wow.
Then you get into some fun ones here. I mean,
not categories of players. You're talking categories of points.
I'm talking about categories of points
and actions that they take.
Yes, literally. So that's what the scoring is. Yes, I got this player who scored points, and you have to think about this. If points is a category, but then also 3-pointers made. A guy makes a 3-pointer. He just scored 3 points for you, and he got a 3-pointer made.
Oh, wow.
But then I mentioned a couple minutes ago about punting a category, basically saying, I'm not going to win this category or this thing or this week. I'm going to focus on all these other things. In basketball, this is kind of common that I would do is if percentages, field goal percentage, my player went 5 of 10 in a game. He made 5 shots, but he missed another 5. He went 5 of 10. He went 50% from the field in that game. And then also free throw percentage. Maybe he only hit 1 free throw out of 5. That's 20%. Basically getting players who maybe do a bunch of good. I mean, Shaq is a player, right? Who would get you a bunch of points and rebounds and maybe blocks at different times. But his free throw percentage is going to be really bad. So maybe you're punting that category by having him, right?
Classically bad.
Classically bad.
Yeah. Exactly. So maybe you have other players who make up for it, or maybe you just say when you're drafting your team, you have the rules in front of you and you're at your draft and you know what your positions you need of I could go after these guys. They do these things well. They're not good at free throw shooting or field goal percentage, but they're great on defense. I'm going to get a bunch of rebounds, steals, blocks. They're good at passing. I'm going to get assists. You're saying I'm going to win these categories. And if I win these 5, I don't care about the other 4 because I'll win every week. I'll win every week by doing that.
Yeah.
See, this is the stuff
that's nuts
that makes me feel like it is so similar to D&D.
Yeah.
When you start talking about it in this fashion, because getting into
statistics, bro.
Statistics of the game, that is kind of what
you're nerding out about the math.
Because then I'm like, and then I'm thinking and if I get a +2 to my AC, then that means that I'll be hit 10% less than if I have not without that AC, or if I give myself advantage, that's kind of like a 33% increase to my attack output, and it's stuff like that where it's that's perfect. That's the crossover right there in my mind, where I'm just that's really, I like that as a way to run a league, because it does feel like you can like in D&D, you can kind of set up your own kind of class. Like I'm gonna spec into this sort of kind of team.
Yeah, I'm
That's
gonna
going to
dump
be good.
intelligence though,
Yeah, I'm gonna
and
dump
I'm not gonna worry about punt. I'm gonna
Nice.
punt my intelligence and just be a strong barbarian.
That's
Nice.
the
See, there you
that's
go.
the
There you go.
lingo
Yep.
crossover.
I'm
A
done.
dumping or
I get this
punting.
now. I'm out.
Yeah.
See ya.
Yeah, I'm in. I'm in. I'm not out. I'm in.
Oh, you're in. You're in it.
Yeah.
All right, I can nerd out about that. I mean, I literally have math rocks right next to me, man.
Yeah, exactly. And
Got the
the
stat.
math rocks, it's just all just trying to make sense of the universe. That's all it is. Yeah.
Oh boy,
The math rocks.
that's great. I'm
Yeah.
so burpy right now, you guys. I can't help it. I'm like trying to lean away from the mic because I literally burp every episode.
I'm getting a bit gassy.
I'm getting a
Oh.
bit gassy. I want to show it off, but I also am trying to hold the conversation with you at the same time. So apologies to anyone who doesn't want to hear this coming, but it will come.
You'll get used to it.
I'll just
It'll
have
be
more
fine.
of my drink and it'll happen.
Oh, you got a little Moscow going on?
Going mule. It's a Kentucky mule, I guess.
Yeah. Bourbon?
Which yes, it is. It is a
Yeah.
bourbon. There you
Nice.
go. And I always called it. I'm like, oh, it's still a Moscow mule, whatever. But I learned this from someone when I was buying whatever bottle or these cool mule cups. They were like,
Love those
oh,
cups.
you're making Kentucky mules. I'm like, oh, a Kentucky mule. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. There it is.
That's great.
There it is. You couldn't
God,
hold it in anymore.
Every episode, it's now my thing. I'm 45 minutes in, guys.
You're
I
so
do a
gassy.
boy.
You're so
I do a burp.
gassy.
I have notes to grab a clip of Tyler Big Burp on Michael episode 7. That was the last episode.
That's awesome. Mark this one now. Let's just get a
What?
bloopers
counter.
reel.
We should have a bottom left counter burp counter.
That's
Of just
great.
how many times Tyler
I think we
rips.
can do that.
I don't know if we
can
should
do
have been encouraging that.
46.
But
Well, you know what?
whatever
Until people
works.
make a comment about it on YouTube, athletics check YouTube.
Get in the
or
comments.
Instagram. Get in the comments. Then I'll stop if you tell me to. I'll mute my mic. Maybe I'll think about it. I'll see if I can control myself.
We'll get a burp filter for your mic. So
Ooh, not even a pop filter, a burp filter.
yeah.
Yeah.
What else did
really
we have in
pushing
our
the
notes
budget.
to talk about, Tyler? Was there anything?
Good question.
Tyler's like,
D&D,
nah.
D&D classes and archetypes. I guess we kind of talked about that with being a barbarian and dumping intelligence.
Yeah.
It's my favorite thing to do. My favorite thing to do is actually breaking stereotypes. I don't mind being a strong wizard. I don't mind kicking your butt with my hands or my brain.
A punch wizard. Yeah.
A punch wizard.
Your throbbing brain.
My throbbing brain. Brain blast. Jimmy
Getting
Neutron.
brained by the brain boy.
Whoa.
Whoa, dude.
Oh, man.
That verb is not quite the
we're gonna
same.
need talk about a filter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
we're gonna put a pop filter on Michael.
yeah.
That's
Yeah. For pop references
Yeah.
that you shouldn't be making.
Yeah.
No, that's about it. Talking about D&D classes. What do you know about D&D classes?
Yeah, let's
Tony?
let's do a little quick check-in. How well do you
check.
think? Well, yeah, let's do a knowledge check.
Intelligence check.
We'll do our and then we'll do our athletics check. You can quiz us on how well you think we're doing after 8 episodes. This is 8, right?
Really
8.
interesting. Okay.
What are the D&D classes? Name all of them. Go.
Name some of them.
How many are there?
There's technically 12 or 14, depending on how many you count.
Orc?
Not a class, that's a race. But it could be.
Keep going.
Yeah, keep going.
We're not here to correct you. We're here to.
Yeah, no, it's fine. You're doing great.
Orc, wizard.
Okay.
The one I just mentioned. Super strong. Crazy Conan.
I feel like we've taught you more about
Barbarian.
Yeah. There you go.
Go see that'll be my plug actually. Will be Barbarian.
Okay. Plugs.
I feel like we've taught you
dragon
more about the game.
Dragon one.
Dragon. Yeah. Keep going.
You can literally be a dragon.
Yep. He's not wrong.
Komodo.
Komodo the dragon. I like that. You got this, dude.
Wizards, orcs.
There's
witches?
Yeah, keep
or
going.
like warlocks of some sort.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Think Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Merlin.
Writing that down.
Okay.
got 7.
So what the trolls or gnomes
Trolls, gnomes.
or
They're in the game for sure.
elves?
Elves are in the game.
Okay,
Absolutely.
There we go.
That's the one I'm looking for. That's
2
the
more.
Yeah.
Oh, only 2 more?
2 more. Until we get to 12 at least.
Okay.
We could go for 14 if you want. There's bonus classes.
I'll give you a hint. Some of these that you're naming, like Michael said, are not necessarily playable classes, like defining that way, but playable races, the ones that you're born into and stuff. Like orcs and elves and stuff like that. However, Michael will correct me. In early editions of D&D, elf kind of was your class, where you were the really talented sharpshooter.
Elf was a good magic user / fighter class. It was like
I think Tony casted level 2 blur on his camera.
I'm trying. I know.
I don't know what happened. We were just sitting here talking about elves and gnomes and trolls.
I think
really weird.
I think his world started to fuzz when we were starting to check his
his
knowledge.
brain started to fuzz and his camera started to wait. How many classes are there?
It's funny because the camera, the USB is actually inserted into my butthole.
We almost got a spit take, or did we?
I got a spit take. It's everywhere. It's all over my beard.
Oh, that's great.
You really got me. Oh my god. I haven't done an actual spit take
very,
ever.
very earnest.
Not what I expected at all.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll be a minute. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's great. Okay, Michael, do you have any hints? I
hints
feel bad.
for
I
the
feel
classes?
I feel like there's a couple.
I don't think you should feel bad.
No, you shouldn't feel
we
bad.
really haven't talked specifically about this aspect of the game.
You know,
I feel like
I'm going
to
to give you
how to play
inspiration.
the game.
Mage? Would you say a mage, or is that too
Mage.
close? Is that
Mage,
too close
so
to
I would
witch,
say
warlock?
There's definitely like some groups. Some of groups are mages.
Yeah.
You know, there are mage type classes, and then there are, more warrior based classes. Barbarian
that's
being
what I
one
think
of them.
I'm missing. Is
along and then
those
there's
lines.
also usually a third kind of class, which is like your sneaky or skill based using classes. Yeah, which are, I mean, if you really break it down, there's maybe only 2 groups. There's your mages and non-mages.
But talking about the actual classes, it's like magic users, like you're saying, in non-magic. But I just wanted to say I'm going to give you DM's inspiration for getting like 20% of these. You got as far as actual in the book classes. You had wizard, barbarian, warlock, and that's great, man. Good for you.
Yeah.
But the races you had, the dragonborn, the gnomes are playable races. Elf is a playable race, and orc / half orc are playable races, at least in the kind of generic versions of, or like the player's handbook, like the very baseline D&D
default stuff. Yeah,
there definitely are trolls. There definitely are witches. There definitely are.
I mean, you could be a witch if you're a warlock.
And stuff.
That's just the kind of another way to say.
Yeah, it's just not titled that.
Yeah,
but yeah, you could be Merlin if you wanted to be.
Yeah,
that's on that too. So I'm gonna give you a point of inspiration. You can re-roll once.
What is Merlin?
He's a wizard. He's like a wizard.
There you go. That's another one.
Okay. Oh,
Wizard's on here, man.
Oh, okay.
What did you already say? Wizard? Oh,
yeah, Wizard's on there.
My bad.
But yeah,
wizard, warlock, barbarian.
It's a kind of weird category because like you can call someone a mage and not know if they're a sorcerer, a wizard, a warlock,
a witch,
a bard.
warlock. Sure.
Yeah, you can kind of fall into those. Like saying someone is a warrior, he could be a fighter, he could be a barbarian, he could be a rogue who's really good at close fighting. You know.
And it also depends
monk.
on how dumb that non-player character is, you know? Maybe they'd think that anyone who has a spell is a warlock,
mage.
you know? Yeah.
That's
It's like,
true.
no,
Michael-
that's just a guy who can cast a spell.
I like you.
Yeah.
Benefit of the doubt guy. Yeah, good.
So
I
you're
love
gonna
those kind of
name. You're gonna. You said I got 20%. I missed probably 2 or 3 that I'm gonna really kick my own tuchus about.
Yeah. Do you want me to?
Maybe,
do you want me
yeah.
to name them?
Yeah.
Off the top of my head. Top of my head test.
Ooh,
Okay.
All right, Michael.
I'll keep you honest.
All right.
Yeah.
I will go alphabetically, including the extra 2 to make it 14.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Can
you
I get
got
can I
this.
get release date and origin of producer or
I could give you a release date.
Michael's got the stats. Michael's got those ones. You got
At least for the
at top
default
with
ones.
A.
I don't know
Artificer's-
necessarily about.
Artificer's A for me. He's a guy who creates magic with technology. Barbarian, swing hard, hit hard. You got your bards. They're very good at casting magic, but they're also very capable fighters up close. Blood Hunter is also in the Bs. They're a critical role created class that is very much based off like The Witcher, where you have these kind of things where you alter your body in which to hunt your foes, and very
Blood
good at
magic.
should have used that
blood
for
magic.
more guesses. Yeah.
Yeah. After that, clerics, you're kind of divine holy warriors and stuff.
You're kicking yourself about that one.
Druids,
That's a classic one, yeah.
Druids, another wisdom based. It's like, yeah, in commune with nature and using nature spells and spike growth.
Wait to hear the next one.
Next one's fighter. This is very
Fighter.
generic.
Come on.
Fighter.
That's the generic one.
He is supposed
Man
to be
who
generic.
fights.
He's the guy who's good at all the martial stuff. He doesn't necessarily come with magic unless you really like focus in that direction. But he's the guy that's like, no, he's good with every weapon. He's good at dealing lots of damage with a sword or with a blade.
Love a good fighter.
Very generic. Let's see. There's a little bit of a gap, but I think we get over to monk after that.
I think so, yeah.
Mostly like unarmed
You can be a
combat
monk.
and like monk. Yeah.
It's less of like a think of like a Benedict monk, like less like what's that guy from Robin Hood? Big John or whatever his name is. What's his name?
I don't know.
Anyway,
Little John.
He
Yeah.
got the wrong adjective.
But there's a monk too, not just Little John. There's a monk.
Mhm.
Is it Little John? No.
Yeah, no, though that's like the guy he fights on the bridge and he has a quarterstaff, which in a way is kind of a monk thing to do. But it's like this is more like like Shaolin monk.
Yeah,
like
Shaolin monk,
this is a fighter.
Now we're
Crouching
talking.
tiger,
Wu-Tang.
hidden dragon, kind of jumping on the treetops, can take
Wu-Tang.
can jump off of trees and take no fall damage, like all the cool monk stuff.
Friar Tuck.
Friar Tuck. Thank you.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
After monk, LMNOP, paladins. You got your guys, also divine warriors, but they're really like off to do good, taking their oaths, smiting down undead and stuff like that.
Those are knights. In other words, in my opinion.
You're kind of
so a fighter would not be a knight is not considered a fighter.
Could be.
Yeah. No, you're right.
It depends on the jurisdiction, but also that's not like a written rule kind of thing.
Okay.
Paladins is more like holy order, like crusader type, knight, as opposed to like maybe just like a knight who follows the government, like Kingsguard sort of knight.
Yeah,
But
that's up for interpretation in
there's some wibbly wobbly room there.
Yeah.
Anyway, what's the next one?
What defines a knight?
Next
one's gonna be ranger. So think like your Aragorn, your Strider, Lord of the Rings. So the guy who's like looking over the land and also good with a bow, typically.
I knew. Okay,
when diverse.
All right. Yep.
One after that would be rogue. So your guy who's a skill monkey, he's good at everything. He's the guy that's lock picking while everyone else is fighting and unlocking the door so you can escape.
Yeah,
he's the guy that's
also
backstabbing enemies, doing a ton of damage.
I would say, stabbing people and like sneaking around in the shadows is big.
Sneaking shadow sneakers,
yeah.
What's left are sorcerers. Kind of pull on the magics of the world without really studying. More like it's in their bloodline. They're born with it, and they're able to just manipulate magic. Very powerful casters, able to bend the rules of
like
magic.
Harry Potter is a sorcerer.
But maybe it's
he's a wizard. Harry. Maybe it's Maybelline. Harry
In
Potter.
this situation, it's not Maybelline. He was born with it.
Well, he's a wizard. He studies the magic.
Yeah,
You're a wizard,
that's
Harry.
its own universe anyway. Yeah,
That is
they
its
can
own
learn
universe.
to be better sorcerers, but they're
I'll allow
born.
it.
But they're born that way. So anyway,
I guess yeah, there is an innate being born with it. Or well, the thing is that they could still learn. Like there's the whole mudblood idea, and Hermione learns magic. She's not born with it. Read a book. What's after that?
There. Read a book.
Next is going to be warlocks, which you got, and then wizards at the end. Warlocks are more like you make a pact with a devil and pact with some kind of entity that grants you powers, and you have to obey it.
They're
For the ones who are in college
magic.
studying the books, like learning magic because they want to, and putting the dedication to manipulate the world. So, I think that's all 14. I don't think.
And yeah. Wizards are the big nerds.
Big nerds.
Big
They
nerds.
nerd out so hard that they actually learn to cast real spells. The thing that we all ascribe to try to do as D&D players.
Cast real magic.
Cast real magic by reading books.
Yeah. Exactly right. Well, there you go.
Yeah.
There's your 12 to 14 classes that you
That's
can
all
choose.
14 of them, yeah.
I think
think
so.
that's all
Yeah,
of
I don't
them.
think I missed
That's
any.
awesome.
I feel bad
Wow.
for any that I did miss.
No, you didn't
Yeah.
miss any. You got the bonus ones are Artificer and the
Blood
Blood
Hunter,
Hunter, which
yeah.
is from Critical Role, and Artificer is from the Eberron campaign setting, which is separate than the Forgotten Realms campaign setting. And fun fact about Eberron, it was written by Keith Baker, who is from Portland.
Nice. Represent.
Nice
Yeah,
fun fact.
that's also something I like to know and think others should know as well.
Well, I've used all my brain power, boys. I don't know what else to do. I think we circled the drain.
Yeah. Is
I
it
think we plug it up.
time to flush this one? Yeah.
What do you think? Oh,
Do we want a vibe check towards the end? We
Yeah.
didn't talk about our drinks this time either. I guess other than Tony's Moscow Mule. But yeah. Kentucky Mule. Thank you.
I had an IPA from Pine Top.
had-
There it is.
I had Liquid Death.
Oh, nice.
Okay, so you had some nice water.
Yeah. Yeah. I was keeping it clean. this
Fine
time,
choice.
At
A
least
fine
in my
choice.
body.
I'm gonna do our generic plugs while we're figuring out this vibe check, if that's okay, and then someone else can send us off. People of the world, we're on YouTube. We have 4 episodes out currently. We got our 5th episode coming out on Saturday, 9:00 Pacific Standard Time. We got a few TikToks on TikTok. Athletics Check 101 over there on TikTok. Look at that. He's got a Liquid Death shirt.
You got
It's a
the
black
water
with a
shirt?
skull on it.
Yeah,
That's so
dude.
cool,
You
dude.
got a hat up there too somewhere.
Dude.
Nice.
That's nice.
There we go. Get a job in a grocery store if you ever get a chance.
There you go. Everyone can email us athletics101@gmail.com. Find us on Discord, Athletics Check Podcast. I got a 5 on my vibe check. What's the verdict?
Ooh, I got
I gave you so much time to roll. What are you
a
doing?
5. I got a 5.
11.
You got an 11.
You may
All right.
send us away if you wish, my lord.
All right.
You're right.
Do you want to do a quick round of plugs?
Oh yeah, I had something I wanted to plug. It was Quill 18. I have been watching Quill 18 on YouTube for a long time. He does a lot of strategy games. He does a lot of simulation-ish type games, like sim building things. I don't know. He's been doing all sorts of stuff for a long time. He's plays things like Civilization and Crusader Kings and stuff like that. All great games, and I just think he's a fun guy to watch. So go check him out. I was watching some of his stuff recently, so thought I'd give him a shout out.
A good shout out. I'm going to plug myself. I'm at Lassian Maps on Instagram. Please check out my cartography based drawings. I also definitely want everyone out there to play Baldur's Gate 3. It's worth the money. It's different
Yes.
every time. It's super fun. It's engaging. It teaches you D&D. Get out there.
Possibly
great time.
one of the greatest games of 2023. And that's saying something because we got a new Legend of Zelda this year that was really, really good. And
Yeah.
we're getting a lot of good games coming out this year. Pikmin 4.
Whoa.
I haven't played it, but I've heard
That's the
it's good.
fourth one I heard.
Yeah.
That's great.
That's crazy.
Oh, that's great.
That's all I had. Yeah, just my two locals.
I don't know this about my co-hosts and my
Mm-hmm.
counterparts here on the show, but my guess is that they are bigger horror fans than me. I would guess, especially Michael.
I
it's
give
just a
off that
guess.
vibe, but I'm a big scaredy cat when it comes to horror things.
Tyler?
Yeah, sure. Bring it on.
Okay. I am not a horror fan. I think it's probably my least favorite genre, one of my lesser genres, I guess I should say. I wouldn't say it's my least favorite. But within the last year, the movie Barbarian came out, and I just thought of this because it is streaming right now. It has been, I think, since it came out. After it left theaters, but just talking about Barbarians throughout the show, it's hard for me not to think of the movie. And one of the better horror movies that I've seen in quite a long time. Really had fun with this movie. It's really almost two different movies put into one, but so much fun as just a fan of films, and even someone who's not a horror genre fan. I think people should go watch the movie. I think it's fun, and it could be funny at times, I guess. I don't know, but maybe it's just disturbing. Maybe I'm a real sick F. You know what I'm talking about. But either way, I think it's worth checking out, even from someone who's not a fan of the genre.
Where did you find it? Where can I watch it?
I want to say it's on HBO Max. Now it's just called Max.
Formerly
It
known
looks
as
like
HBO
it, yeah.
Max.
Yes.
Looks like you can see it on all sorts of different streaming platforms.
It's on a number of things. But I think it is worth checking out. I'll just say that. I'll leave it at that. Leave it up to you guys to check out at some point. But this was a lot of fun. I love hanging out with Michael and Tyler, and I can't wait to do it again after a short trip to Wisconsin, and then we'll be back with more fun, more content. The fellas talked about how football season is starting this week. The first game is tomorrow, Sunday, obviously the big day for games. And for me, this is always like the end of the summer in a lot of ways. It's school is back in session. It is fall is coming, and chili, putting chili in the crock pot and putting on a hoodie and watching your teams play. And I love this season, and football season kicking off is really the beginning, I feel like, and really the stretch run to end the year. So very excited about what's going on. Can't wait for the Green Bay Packers. This a whole new era. We can get into that another episode about what this legendary historic team of over 100 years is coming into this year for the first time ever. Really, it's really a big deal, and can't wait. I'm so excited. But
I can't wait to follow up on that next time.
Hell yeah.
I hope you have a great trip. We'll catch up on that too.
Thank
That's
you.
awesome.
Yes, absolutely.
Stay safe out there.
Hell yeah. For Michael and Tyler, I am Anthony. This is Athletics Check. Please check us out at Athletics Check here on YouTube. TikTok, we are Athletics Check 101. You can also email us at athletics.check101@gmail. We got a little Discord. Check out Athletics Check Podcasts. All the places. Please like, subscribe, comment. All that jazz is extremely helpful for all of us, and we appreciate your feedback. Thank you so much. And until next time, he's Michael. He's Tyler. I am Anthony. This is Athletics Check. We will catch you next time.
See ya.